Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Fractional DevRel Podcast. My name is Jason Koo. I'm your host. And today we're going to cover how to scale developer feedback. And my special guest today is Joseph Petty. Joseph is the current head of developer relations over at Handsontable. And Joseph, you have, I think, a very fascinating sort of history and intro into developer advocacy. Can you open up and tell us about how you went from, was it like a nuclear operations specialist?
Yeah, nuclear reactor operator. And somehow that led to developer relations. Yeah. And I'm the head of developer experience now for Handsontable. Before that, I was head of developer relations for AppSmith. So
Okay.
slightly different title now, but yeah. So yes, I guess the origin story. How did I get here into DevRel from a nuclear operator, right? I was a reactor operator in the Navy, and same job as Homer Simpson. I started up a reactor, and it didn't explode. It was the first time I started one up. I was 24, and it was insane experience to be able to to be in control of that. But it was a really cool job, and after the training, I got through the training program, and they offer an instructor position for people like the top people in each class, and I was the top one in my field, which was electronics technician, nuclear electronics tech, and then there's mechanic and electrician. And so anyway, I was selected for my rating for the electronics tech to be an instructor before going to C. So like usually you'd finish the training program, go to C, and then come back and maybe be an instructor. But they're short staffed, and they would pick offer that to certain people. So I did that, and basically I include that because I didn't realize till later, but a lot of my jobs have had an educational component of a technical topic. Whether it's programming or nuclear power. I used to teach in the nuclear program there. So after that, I got out of the Navy, moved here to Tallahassee, and worked at a magnetics lab that's part of Los Alamos. It's a satellite campus here in Tallahassee, but they have some of the largest magnets in the world, several like Guinness record ones. One that I got to start up that set a Guinness record. So it's a pretty cool facility, and very similar equipment to what I worked on in the Navy. So anyway, while I was working at the mag lab, there was a database that we used for our logs, and it really needed some work, like things that just were outdated and drop down didn't have the right value, so we had to put extra notes here to just silly things like that. And the person that built it still worked there, but they'd moved up several positions and just didn't have time to maintain it. And so I taught myself just so I could fix a couple things for my own job, and I had to do it in a separate copy, kind of set up my own environment to prove that I wasn't going to break stuff, right? And so I did it, took it to him, and I'm like, all right, I can fix this. Here's the proof. Here's the change I want to make. Can I get the admin password for the main one now? And so I did it. I made the fix that I needed, and that just opened the floodgates. And then anytime something needed fixed, they're like, can you do this? Can you fix that? And so I ended up learning a bunch of stuff about it. And it was in this old platform that's similar to Microsoft Access from Apple. It's called FileMaker Pro. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's still around. It's like 40 years old. But it's a really cool drag and drop low code platform for for building for Mac or Windows. And so I got really good in that. And one day somebody called me up at work to try to poach me from the mag lab to come work for the and I actually was kind of interested in the side work, but I'm like, don't call me at work for that. Maybe check out on the side or whatever. So anyway, I ended up doing some side work, and that took off, and the side work was paying more than the main job, and it was also getting close to 80 hours a week instead of 40, so I decided to switch and do it full time. And in 2016 I started Greenflux, my own consulting business, and I worked with a couple local companies, and then once I got into like on Upwork and Fiverr and stuff, and did a couple jobs, as soon as I was active on there and there were people to hire in these low code platforms, I did a FileMaker, App Sheet, and then AppSmith. Um, it just took off. I had tons of work, and I ended up helping several other freelancers. Well, several other people become full-time freelancers that had the skills to do the work, but not the lead generation, not knowing how to talk to clients or whatever. So I kind of mentored several other freelancers. So again, a education component, technical education part to it. And I kind of realized that the whole journey I've had that through like lots of different jobs, right? And so then at AppSmith, I ended up there because I was using AppSmith to freelance, and I was like blogging about it because I didn't expect anybody to like subscribe and follow my blog. I didn't care about the numbers or the views or anything. I blogged about what I could build to send a link in a proposal. When I would apply to a job on Upwork, instead of me trying to talk them into hiring me, I wanted to just send a link to show them what I could build. And so like I was writing and blogging and doing like demos and stuff in AppSmith because that was my like main platform at the time. And then they had a hackathon in 2022, and I joined it. I won first, second, and fourth place. And the next week, the CEO called me up and offered me a job. And so I went from a junior DevRel to a senior to head of DevRel, and was there for like 4 years. And then at the beginning of this year, I just joined Handsontable as head of developer experience. So yeah, so that's the journey, the kind of connection from the nuclear power to the mag lab job was very similar equipment and all that kind of stuff. And then the side work database thing, like it just happened. It wasn't why I was hired for there. It was just something that needed fixed, and I was like, I'll figure it out. And then I did. And that became like the main part of my job there at one point. I did more of the database stuff there than the job I was hired for towards the end.
Right.
See what kind of work I can get from it. So it took off. The crazy thing is that like back then, I just wanted to build the solution, and I didn't want to learn to program. I had no interest in learning like actual programming, and honestly, I was a little intimidated by it, but it wasn't like I wanted to do it, but I'm intimidated. I just wasn't interested. Like I didn't want to learn to code at all. I wanted to just drag and drop and build the solution, and but then in that process, I learned about database schemas, and there was a little bit of SQL that was required, and then there was some APIs I wanted to integrate with, and then just along the way, the thing that was scary and intimidating wasn't anymore, and then there would also be client requirements that were beyond the capabilities of either FileMaker or AppSheet or AppSmith, and I'd have to tie in something else that was going beyond no code or low code into full code for this add-on. And so it just evolved. And now I still have a deep appreciation for those tools because that's how I got into the field, but I'm full code now. I rarely go to the, low code or no code stuff. N8N is one of the few that I still like really use, but yeah, like.
And before I dive into that, there's one more question on your like journey I wanted to
Okay.
like highlight. So you had mentioned before you had joined AppSmith that you had done a hackathon and you had won several positions simultaneously.
Yeah.
So for folks who are interested in doing hackathons or running hackathons, how did this scenario happen?
I was already active in their community. I've been following it for a while and was on their Discord, and I talked to several people on the team. So then when they had this, I was like just already really plugged into the community, and I basically churned out like 3 or 4 blog posts, a couple templates. It was like different formats, because there were different categories of what you could submit. And so I just did like all of them because at the time I was building full time for my clients, and all of my active clients, I was using AppSmith to build it in, right? Like, so I was already building it at full time and wanted to keep doing that and find more work in it, you know? So, so all of these submissions were like my portfolio, my resume. Like I wanted to participate in the hackathon, but it was a lot more than that, you know? It was to help me get the next client or whatever. So I think maybe I put more into it than most people.
No, that's my takeaway from that experience, like, your lead into AppSmith, is that if people, are, say, looking for kind of a similar developer advocacy type role, that a good way to segue into it is to just become a real champion of whatever technology you like using, right? I forget his name, but there was another dev advocate who I think was the first advocate over at LangChain. His journey to joining LangChain was similar to yours. Like, very early on, he was using their technology. He started giving them feedback and writing and talking about it. And then eventually, LangChain was like, hey, why don't you just kind of join us and do this officially?
Yeah,
So yeah,
I mean, it's worked for me. That's how I got into to working at in tech and at startups. And I didn't come from that background. I was a freelancer that just kind of fell into it, and I'm self-taught, so I didn't like go to a university and get a degree for it and an internship and whatever, like the normal path. And if it really anybody could come from any direction for DevRel, whether it's a tech side or maybe you're good at the presentations or the creating content or whatever it is. It's a mix of so many different skills that nobody is going to like enter the field already strong in all of them. You kind of come with one of those angles and then you got to learn the rest, right? So
yeah.
it's a good way for anybody to enter it, though, is just like you said, become a champion in their community and just being active and showing what you can do and build with it. And who knows, if you're serious about getting a job in it and there's a specific company, I think that's a good way in. And if there's not a specific company, then spread that out. And it can still be your same approach, same technique or whatever, but instead of all in on one tool, it's more about building a portfolio of what you can do in every tool, and then see which one ends up working out.
That's great advice. Cool. Okay. So since we're here to talk about kind of identifying and how to work around or scale getting developer feedback, what has been your personal experience, Joseph, on connecting with developers and learning about their pain points?
So we're talking about scaling, and for me, the best way to get the feedback is not very scalable. Like, I prefer the one-on-one. I would rather talk to them directly, either in person or get on a video call with our customers, which I do that in my role at Handsontable. I'll join support calls that I don't need to be there. Like, somebody from tech support is there to solve whatever issue they need. I'm more there to just hear what their pain points are and then ask if they like had any issues with the docs or things that were missing. So that's my preferred way to collect the feedback, but it's not scalable. If you want to be able to get a lot of it and to really get a big picture, that's not something one person can do. And you also probably don't want to hire a team and try to talk to every single customer, right? Like, you got to have other ways to collect signals that are more scalable. So that kind of segues into the AI Docs Assistant. So I built this assistant for our docs that has RAG, like a vector storage version of all of our docs. So it's not just keyword search against the docs, but like a snapshot of the docs every time we update them. That part of that pipeline, every time we publish a new version of the library, there's a new version of the docs and they update together. And now I've added to that pipeline, it copies all of those markdown files into a Pinecone Assistant. I use their Assistant API. And so there's a versioned Pinecone Assistant for each version of our docs. And it's not just the snapshot of our docs that's different, the system prompt changes, and the prompt changes how it responds, and so like I set up a full dev and prod environment, and so while while the prod one's running and it's working and doing its thing, right, we're also building the next version of Handsontable, and those docs are also being built at the same time, and the RAG pipeline is ingesting those next version of the docs and another system prompt. Like sometimes we want to change some behavior, right? And so we can change that on the dev branch, and it changes the dev assistant or whatever. And so we put this out there, and now our users can chat with it and ask questions. And it's given us feedback that we didn't have before, because we're a JavaScript library, but we're not like a full platform that you log into. We don't have telemetry. We're not sending data back. So like, we know how many npm downloads our library has. We know what our customers tell us. But like, we don't have this platform with events and metrics and like all this stuff actually logging what you did. So there's a lot of things that we would only know if customers like said, hey, we're building this, or we're stuck on that, if they came to us directly, or they put it in a GitHub issue, But now we see them chatting with the assistant, and we'll see a certain topic come up repeatedly, or we're seeing what regions, and languages. The bot, I set it up to respond in any language. So if they ask in, if they ask in Chinese or Portuguese, or whatever, like country they're from, it will respond in the text part in their language. But then when it gets to the code part, it knows to not translate the method names and functions that would break the code, and so first we built it, got it out there, and we're like, this is awesome. We're just seeing the customers use it, and seeing the follow-up questions, and that they're really finding value in it. Like, that alone was cool. And now the next phase is we're kind of triaging them as if they're GitHub issues or something, right? Like, is it a bug, a feature? Is it just like a misunderstanding? Like maybe they just couldn't figure something out. It wasn't a bug. They just like didn't know how something worked or whatever, right? So I'm trying to categorize and label all these, and the end goal is that the bot would respond differently based on the category, but we're not there yet. I don't want to have it respond inappropriately because it assumed or misclassified or whatever, right? And so I just rolled out this classification thing. It already had the RAG pipeline, and it's able to generate code samples and all this stuff. But now it's got the classifier, and we're just starting to get that aggregate data. And then I'll look at all the ones that are classified as a feature request, and then like I'm manually going through it. Okay, this one shouldn't have been, or this one shouldn't have been called a bug or whatever, right? So once that is dependable, then the next phase will be getting the bot to go down a different path and actually interact with them differently. Maybe collect what the feature request is and create a draft post for it, or if it's a bug, like creating the draft issue. So I want to keep a human in the loop for any action that anything besides answering their question, basically. Like the bot there's no human in the loop, and it's answering your question about our docs. It'll generate code samples. You can paste in your code, and it'll correct it and all this stuff. But as soon as it's going to take an action in another platform, like there'll either be a human reviewer first, or that action will be a draft. Like it wouldn't be public. So that's the next step, is to validate the classification and then build the flow of what it does based on those classes.
Now, I'm guessing this system is, you're not building this like open source or in the public, right? This is an internal tool?
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's internal. It's changing quickly. I don't think at this point open sourcing it would be helpful, because somebody build on it and then it will change completely.
No. Yeah. No, that's fine. So, but if someone else wants to do something similar for their docs, what recommendations would you give them on, the sort of starting steps?
So I went with Pinecone and their assistant API for mine because it's so simple and easy to just upload files and then hit an endpoint to ask a question, and you get back the answer in one API call. You don't have to get back a thread ID and then wait for it to, generate or whatever, and then check the thread status and stuff like some of those where there's the retrieval step. It's async, and you can't just send it and wait, and so their API will, in a single request, you ask the question, it does all the retrieval, it does the re-ranking, there's metadata filtering so that it will only search the subset of the vectors that apply, right? So you can have some extra logic that says, drill down to only these files first. And then that part is deterministic. It's like a SQL first. And then it does the vector semantic search, right? And so then it starts the streaming response. And so I can show a beginning of a response to the end user almost instantly, because it's not like I gotta send it, get back an ID, give it time to generate, get back the next, so it's right off the bat, it starts showing something to the end user. And then the just uploading the files, it handles the chunking for you. You don't have to think about, like parsing your markdown files into 500 line chunks or whatever. You can just upload it, and it handles everything for you. So just big fan of Pinecone. It makes it super easy. And a lot of the complexity in what I have built is everything else around it, like the classification part and the logging, and we have it tied into our Slack, so we get notifications, and we can't respond back. Like, we're not going to jump in the conversation, but we can see the conversation. We see what they asked and then what the bot responded with, and then that helps us improve it, because people in the team will be like, wait, the bot shouldn't respond like that. It shouldn't have said that, And so they keep me in check. The team will call me out and be like, hey, fix the bot. It shouldn't be doing that, and so I'll go. Sometimes it's just updating the system prompt. Other times it's like adding another RAG source or whatever. But it's given us a ton of feedback about what the customers are building, where they need help, and then they're getting a lot of value out of it. And I'm learning a ton building it and having fun. So yeah, it's been a good project.
That sounds amazing. And like, just a fantastic, initially sounded like a kind of a workaround over the fact that you didn't have that initial telemetry data that, I think a lot of other tools and services have. Mm-hmm. And I think you've built something that, arguably is better, right? Because when people are asking and interacting with this AI docs app, people are, they're engaging with it, right? Versus, I'm just using your tool and, there's data magically going somewhere, but there's no like direct interaction with the site, with your documents, and sounds like eventually with staff. Because do you, like, if there's like interesting responses or something very unique, do you reach out to like particular developers on the system and go like, hey, XYZ, like, is that?
So right now we don't have a good way to do it because it's public. There's no login, right? We were considering adding that, and maybe adding like a limit to the free public version, so it's still there and people can ask questions and see how it works. But maybe after so many questions, if you want more, like if you want to like free up on the rate limiting, then you would have to log in. In that case, we know who they are. We have a chance for them to log in and accept some type of thing that we're allowed to do that and jump into the conversation. I think it would be weird if a random person lands on our public docs, starts chatting with an AI, and then it switches over to a human, and like a third person jumps in and is like, oh, hey, you want to jump on a call? So
yeah.
But we're thinking about making a logged in version of it that's more of a, not an additional paid service, but an additional service that our paid customers would get. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
Like,
okay.
So like if you're already a paid customer and you've logged in, that's an idea that we've discussed. I don't know for sure that we're going to go that route with it, but I'm saying that if I was to build those type of handoff interactions, where a human's going to jump in. I don't think I'd put it out there on the public one that anybody could make us jump on a call, like we want to do that for the logged in, validated customers where it's not just like going to be spammed or, somebody testing it out to see if we're real or going to get on the call.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to approach it. Yeah, I was just thinking of like, customer service chat dialogues, right? You'll start off with like an AI or an automated system, and I don't know about you, but I frequently get to a point where it's like, okay, the system needs to do a handoff, and it'll tell someone like, hey, would you like me to bring in like a human to come talk to you? But you're right. If you're just having a chat and then all of a sudden a third person goes like, hey, I noticed it. Yeah, you're right. That would be a little creepy. Like somebody's been just like watching my conversation and you're like, oh, now there's a sales opportunity. I'm going to jump in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a little much.
Yeah, but it's
Okay.
interesting to see where it can go with the classification though. So that's that's the latest update that I added is starting the classification, and now I've got to like give it some time and check it and make sure it's accurate. And then if I agree and it looks like, okay, every time it labels something a bug, it really is, let's go ahead and add the action that creates a draft GitHub issue, or things like that. So testing the classification part before I add actions to it.
Right. Okay. I mean, you've been talking about this bot for a while now. Did you have a demo of it, or is it on the site now that people can jump to?
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's do it.
Where's the share?
Should be straight down bottom middle.
Okay, so here's our docs. From the homepage here, just go to docs and then click the Ask AI. You can see this, right?
Yep.
Okay. So this opens up the sidebar here, and there's like a couple default questions you can ask. I'm going to say, how can I put an image in a cell based on the cell value dynamically? And so this will search our docs. It'll help write code samples that you can copy and just paste into your app. It is aware of the page that you're on. And so we have sections that are for like for React, for Vue, for Angular, or whatever. And so it knows like what framework to use to write it. It defaults to whatever one that you're currently viewing. It's got a copy button here for the code block separate from like the whole prompt, So I wouldn't want to paste the whole prompt into my file, right? Like if you just want the code itself, you can paste your own code in here and it will like help correct it. And like I said, it's versioned for every version of our docs. And then like the next version comes out and we're testing the next version of the assistant while it's in dev. And then when we ship the next version of the library, we ship the next version of the assistant that knows about it.
That's great. And that's all automated. So just as soon as you guys have new versions up, it sets off a CI process, I'm assuming.
Most of it's automated. I flip a environment variable myself to make it official at the end, just to like stay in control of it.
Nice. So it's great. It sounds like you've got this great sort of overall protocol strategy of gating all the real final critical paths with the human in the loop.
Yeah. And this one, it's read only. It's generating a text response, but it doesn't change anything in any system. So if anybody's watching this and trying to prompt inject it, there's nothing useful you can make it do. We have had some people prompt injecting it already. That's one of the classifications that I just added, that it'll flag it if it's malicious use, or like somebody abusing it. But yeah, it doesn't take any actions. And if and when we ever add that, it'll always be a human in the loop, or it will only be a draft of whatever. So. Yeah,
that's great. No, I think that's a great technique.
Not too worried about anybody, breaking it, or if there's rate limiting already, and it ramps up. The more that you try to abuse it or whatever, the rate limiting gets more restrictive.
Nice, Cool. Okay, I got just two last questions to close this out here.
Okay.
First one is just general advice from you. If you're, talking with like a brand new DevRel team that may be small or has limited resources, what would be the first thing you would suggest they look into in terms of like, trying to make an impact, make an effect with limited capabilities?
Yeah. You had like a similar question, I think, in our planning doc where you had asked about like if you had one day to do it, right? And I
Yes.
was really thinking about that. Like, what honestly can you do in a day that I'm thinking about making it shippable and actually ready for prod or whatever. And I don't think there's anything public facing that I think that anybody can just do in a day that's really gonna help your bottom line if it's like out there in the public, right? So if you really only have a day to do something, I think the best thing is internal. Is figure out what pain points or skills or things that you're doing the most often that you can create a skill for. Like I have found that it's so easy to just go from I need to get this task done, and okay, as soon as I'm done with that, now I'm like heads down trying to get this next thing done. But if you take a step back and look, it's like, wait a minute, these three or four things that are related that I keep having to do regularly, if I just spend like an hour making a good Claude Code skill for that, or like a reference folder, like I always work in this project as a starting point, um, but you got to like stop responding to the next fire and the next fire and the next fire and take a minute and just look back at like, what thing can I do that gives more higher leverage, that I can reuse instead of just doing these one-off things. So it's a little abstract, but try to figure out how to apply that to your regular pain points and instead of just doing one task at a time, like find the higher leverage thing that makes them all faster going forward.
That's a great piece of advice. Dig it. All right, and last question. Is there any DevRel out there that you're super impressed with, or a DevRel tool that you recommend everyone kind of check out?
Yeah, there's a guy on LinkedIn that I follow, Marcos Placona. I hope I'm saying that right.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
but excellent content, and he's he's doing DevRel for lots of companies. Like he's not just working for one company, and so he goes through and does the evaluations repeatedly, and that's something that really interests me. I'm full time at Handsontable now, and before that, AppSmith. But before that, I was a full time freelancer, constantly switching between clients, and now I'm full time in DevRel, but not switching. And I love what I'm doing. I'm happy where I'm at, but the idea of getting to do that cycle of like evaluating, finding the pain points, fixing something, and then like seeing the proof of it and the numbers go up and then going on to the next one, that just sounds like a really cool type of work. And he's seems to really have it down. Like he's done it multiple times with different companies and always publishing about the findings or the just tips on it. So I follow his content for that kind of stuff and see how I can apply it where I'm at. But I love the idea of doing it fractionally, which is what interests me about your podcast, and making it more like a method that you like reapply, because that's what like people in my position need. But then it's really hard to develop that when you're just at one company and you only see like one example, and he's out there like doing it rinse and repeat over and over in the next one, and then producing that like the type of content that helps us get it right the first time instead of having to go there. You know what I'm saying? So like that's why I appreciate his content.
Yeah, his posts are solid. Yeah, for great advice. Yeah, I'll definitely post a link to his LinkedIn in the description. For people wanting to get in touch with you, whether it's for FileMaker or running maintaining a nuclear reactor, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn. That's like the only social I'm real active on. That and Reddit. I'm homebrewdude on Reddit if you want to check that one out too. But LinkedIn is my main, and then if you want to I've got a GitHub portfolio like Greenflux. There you go. .github.io.
Cool. I'll also put those in the description. All right. Thank you, Joseph, for your time. This was super insightful. I learned a lot, and I hope this was also inspirational for everyone listening. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a great one.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.